Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Dr. Laura Luna, school psychologist, and I know that many of you have been following me and seeing my Spanish videos, but joke's over. I'm gonna do English videos too. I'm gonna talk about the top 5 mistakes that new school psychologists make. And in 20 years of experience doing school psychology and about 15 years of supervising both school psychology interns and new career, early career school psychologists, I've learned and seen a couple of things, and I've seen the same things repeat themselves over time. And so I wanted to make this video for you guys to kind of just put you at ease in some ways and to give you a leg up in learning some of these things, okay? So, and as always, if it works for you, you take it. If it doesn't resonate for you and it doesn't work, skip it and focus on something else. So, school psychologist as a field, as a career, is kind of difficult and can be a little bit isolating just because of the nature of the work and where we do it. And so anything that can make it easier for you will be great. So here we are. Top 5 mistakes that new school psychologists make. Number 1, thinking that you're gonna know everything as soon as you leave your 3rd-year internship. A lot of my interns will think, oh my goodness, I have to know everything. Or what if this happens? Or what if this scenario comes up? I don't know that I know that. And so I guess the mistake is thinking that you have to know everything, or that you will somehow magically know everything at the end. That's not true. If you are not still learning 20 years into doing this profession, then something is wrong. There's always something new to learn. There's always some new profile that's going to be presented to you. There's always going to be a new case with new twists and turns and new measures coming out. So always take the load off. You don't have to know everything on your first year. You will be learning, and hopefully, if you're lucky, you'll continue to learn throughout your entire career. Mistake number 2 is having a standard battery. I had to include this mistake here because it's actually one of the trick questions that you get asked in school psychology interviews. They'll ask you, what's your standard battery? Trick question. Why? Because there's no such thing. Your battery should be designed to address and answer the questions that you have developed from the referral questions or from the parent or teacher concerns. So even though most of our batteries will almost always include a cognitive assessment, and sometimes some narrow or broadband. I have some colleagues who always include a BASC in all of their assessments. So even though you may have like the base of a cognitive assessment and maybe the BASC, you still have additional measures that you'll give, and these will vary. And that's not to say that sometimes you'll be giving a similar battery over and over again. Like, for example, ADHD is ubiquitous within the school setting, and that can really impact a child's ability to learn. So a lot of your batteries might look similar because the presenting problems will be similar, but you never have a standard battery. That's like the death knell, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna get used to giving the same thing over and over again. Your mind is gonna stagnate. You're going to just do the same things, analyze the same kind of data, and write the same kind of reports over and over again, so that when you get presented with something new or out of the norm or a new question that you have to answer, there'll be a steeper learning curve. But most importantly, you want to be able to do work that's meaningful. And for me, especially, and hopefully for you, what makes it really meaningful is being able to provide value to the parents and teachers who are really confused about what's going on with their kid. Mistake number 3, and I'm gonna get a lot of flack for this, but I think it's taking work home. When I was brand new, and I didn't have a child, I would take work home frequently. And that was just the way that I could do it. It took me a very long time to write reports. One report would take me about 6 hours. And I was also learning from a lot of neuropsychologists, so I really beefed up a lot of my assessments so as to expose myself to those measures and be able to learn them. And so granted, I was doing longer assessments, using a broader range of assessment tools, and I was still bringing it home. I do think that there's a time and a place for that, but I think it's a big mistake to assume or to fall into the trap of assuming that your work is going to take more than 40 hours a week. So either there has to be some changes in terms of how your day is scheduled, but more likely than not, it has to do with the caseload, the severity, of the cases that you're getting and the frequency or the number of cases that you get. And the reason why this is a mistake is because there are other people involved in your environment. And so when you do work and you take it home, the messaging is that this is a workload that you're able to do, that one person is able to do. And I think it works best if you're able to set parameters for what your work hours are. And then from there, you can say, hey, I think that doing 5 evaluations a week is probably too much. I think that doing 3 evaluations of severely impaired social emotional children in outside placements is taking a long time. As long as you continue to bring work home, not only do you start giving your children and your family just kind of the short shrift, like less time with you, but you start to communicate to the powers that be that this is a workload that is sustainable. And if you get sick, if you have to take sick days, if you have to take care of a loved one, or simply if you get older and maybe a little bit slower, it's going to be a hard sell to then turn around and say, this is an unsustainable workload because you've been doing it the whole time. And so think carefully about that, especially if you're yet to have children. If in the future you plan to have children, know that even your ability to concentrate and work from home might be impacted. So that's kind of a doozy. I know people feel like, well, if I didn't bring work home, I wouldn't be able to do it, but take it and use it or leave it. That's just been, in the last 20 years, one of the observations that I have made. Mistake number 4. And this is a new one, but it's old too. I think one of the biggest mistakes that new school psychologists make is not leveraging tools that are available to you, such as technological tools or now AI, to be able to move the process along. A lot of what we write is repetitive and very specific to specific tools. And so now we have a lot of resources with using AI to write these reports. And there are a lot of people who have been very thoughtful about what some of the implications are in terms of privacy and protected information. And I think it's a big mistake not to learn that what AI can bring to the table in terms of improving your productivity and your efficiency. And before AI, we could leverage shortcuts such as templates. You know, one of my favorite things I heard while I was in grad school was cut and paste is your friend. It is your friend. I am not a fan of using just computer generated output to write portions of my reports, but that has changed throughout the years, and sometimes when the caseload was very, very high, then I really didn't have much of a choice. But for the most part, I've learned to leverage some of these tools in ways that make me a more efficient and productive person, and is allowing me to do the numbers that I need to do the number of evaluations that I need to do, while continuing to provide a quality piece of information for the educational team. I left the best one for last because this is ubiquitous. I mean, and I don't think it's specific to new school psychologists either. The number one top mistake I think that early school psychologists do is thinking that you're doing this alone. And I know that it can feel that way because we are trained in a way that is very different than everyone else in a school building. So oftentimes you only have one of us in one school building. So you have to do, when you're in a school building, you have to do a lot of training around what it is that you do, what is represented by what you do, what data you gather, what your responsibility is as part of a special education team, or if you're lucky, what your responsibility is as far as the larger context in schools, like student study team or clinical team meetings or program development in schools. Thinking you're doing it alone is something that is pervasive throughout every single piece of what we do. In some sense, like thinking that you're alone in the building just because you're the only one in that building doesn't mean you're the only one in your department. And I think if it takes you to start building that camaraderie, that collaboration, that partnership, then have you be the one to do it. We need each other, not just for consultation and bouncing ideas of, but just for the human element of connecting with other people who have some sort of shared experience with us, like our training or what it is that we do. That is really, really important for your longevity in the field and for, I would say, even your mental health. Just being able to reach out to someone who doesn't need a ton of background to be able to understand a particular situation that you're in. But there are other ways that this shows up too. Even as part of the educational team, there are a lot of school psychologists who believe that they are the ultimate and only person who makes the final determination. And in my particular state, the law is so vague around this that people have chosen to interpret it in different ways. So some people feel like the psychologist makes the final disability determination because they have collected all the data and they are uniquely trained in being able to interpret this data. And it kind of goes with what the definitions of disabilities are, right? So a team, a special education teacher doesn't necessarily have the training to talk about discrepancy models in assessment and what looks like a disability or not. Sometimes they do, but in some ways, some people feel like, okay, the school psychologist has to come to this determination. But really, you have a whole team of people who are uniquely suited to sit at the table with their own specific set of skills. You have a special education teacher who has experience in the classroom, or if they're brand new, they have training and coursework in a lot of these areas. Usually you have the regular education teacher, and oftentimes you have specialists like occupational therapists and speech and language pathologists. So when you come to the table, you don't have to feel like you're the ultimate person on which the responsibility is going to lie, because that's not the case. The reason why these teams are designed the way that they are is specifically to give you the opportunity to collaborate. I'll be using that word a lot in a lot of my videos, and to really lean and leverage everybody's skill set. And it's so important for you as a school psychologist to learn how to communicate effectively, clearly, and of course not to take anything personal unless it's explicitly made personal. Because that's going to protect you and your mental health again. And so that's the biggest mistake. You are not alone. You can leverage the help of your teammates in the educational team setting, but also of your other school psychologists that you're working with. And if you're in a rural district where you are the one for the district, then now we have access to a lot of groups on Facebook, or even through our national organizations like NASP or your state-based school psychologist organization. You have the capacity to both get mentored, to connect with other school psychologists, and to ask your questions. I think that if you kind of try to steer clear of these 5 mistakes, you are going to have a wonderful time in school psychology, and you're going to be able to navigate the pitfalls and the difficulties and maybe some of the cons that might come along with this particular field. I hope that you can avoid these 5 mistakes. And as always, thank you so much for coming to my channel. I appreciate you. I love talking to you guys. And I hope that if you have any questions, you would go ahead and leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with your friends. Bye.